And here we are once again. I want to give you a very brief introduction to the Greek article. Now, the introduction will be very, very brief because, of course, we are going to learn more and more about the article as we go. The Greek article is something very, very important. I just realized I'm not satisfied. Whoa, there goes my pen. Not satisfied with the size of the rough breathing over this one. You can't see that very well. That, my friends, is intended to be a rough breathing mucho better. All right, that's how we vatos say much better. All right, so anyway, and pardon the not completely symmetrical nature of this. If you're watching my videos, you realize that my penmanship isn't necessarily the best, etc. However, I'm going to give you a basic introduction to the Greek article. Now, English also has articles, so there is a parallel, but we need to be a little careful. English has two kinds of articles. We have in English the definite article. You will note that in your textbook, sometimes it talks about the Greek article as the definite article. And that's not quite right. I'll explain why. The definite article in English would be the word the. And the indefinite article in English, that's the second one, the indefinite, article, it can't make up its mind, is the word either a or an. A person, an apple, etc. Now, the reason we don't call the Greek article the definite article is there is no indefinite article in Greek. There's no equivalent of a. Rather, in Greek, I'm going to go ahead and take all that off. I think you get the idea. Definite and indefinite in English, but I want room to write. Let's get rid of some of this jazz. You wanted to watch a video with me erasing stuff, and I really don't like to disappoint the students. I like to give the people what they want, as it were. All right. In Greek, we have two possibilities. We have what is called an articular noun. And an articular noun or adjective is a noun or an adjective that, are you ready for this, has a Greek article with it. So, for instance, anthropos would be an articular noun. And we would usually translate that article as the man. Now, not always, because sometimes things like proper names are used with an article, like Jesus for Jesus. And we don't want to say the Jesus. When I was a young warthog, before I knew very much about Greek and I was first learning, I used to think, oh, wow, how about that? When they use proper names in Greek, they call people the. And I was telling some guy about Greek who wasn't taking Greek, and I was taking first-year Greek. Yeah, in Greek, your name would be the Justin. Now, that was goofy and nonsensical and just, frankly, not true at all. But proper names do have the article, but usually a noun with the article will be the. What is true is we're always talking about something definite. So if we said Jesus, we're talking about one specific Jesus, as opposed to any old Jesus, etc. Whether it's talking about, Jesus Christ or Jesus Justice or something like that. We're pointing out a particular one. That's a good way to explain what articles do. They point. I know your parents taught you not to point, but you are allowed to use Greek articles. They point something out as opposed to all the other options. So, an articular noun with anthropos would mean the man, most of the time. If a noun doesn't have the article, we call that Oh, look at me writing in an alpha when I want an A. Happens. An arthrus. Yeah, that's a funny looking U. Okay. Anarthrous. Anarthrous. And a word that is anarthrous simply means there is no article. So if we were just to write anthropos with no ha, that would be an anarthrous noun, and we usually would say a man rather than the man. If there's no article, typically we'll translate it as a, but that's not a fixed rule. Understand that. This is really important. There are exceptions. Here's the thing. Another reason we don't say definite article, because that could give the impression that if it has the definite article, it's definite, and if it doesn't have the definite article, it is indefinite. It is true that if a noun has the article, it is a definite noun. However, it is untrue that if a noun doesn't have the article, that is indefinite. It might be indefinite or definite, as our textbook tells us on that. For instance, the word God, theos, oftentimes appears as indefinite. That doesn't mean that we're talking about a God. Usually when theos appears, not always, but usually when we see theos, it's talking about the one true God, even if it's anarthrous. There's a lot going on here. Obviously, New Testament Greek is a complex language, so I'm just trying to break things down real simple and give you some general guidelines that are usually true but not necessarily true. Typically, when a noun is anarthrous, then it's indefinite, but that's not always the case. But definitely, if it does have the article, it is definite. Next point we need to make is that you will note that the article appears many different ways. It's not just like English where we have the. There is a nominative singular, nominative plural, genitive singular and plural, and all the way. And I'm only giving you the masculine articles here. There are also neuter articles, which are in your lesson 4, as well as feminine articles, which will be in the next lesson. And so, if you memorize the articles, it will help you out a lot for a number of reasons. What you have to understand is that articles are declined, much like nouns are. So let's just take ha here. I should go on this side. Let's just take this right here, which is a common article. Ha is nominative, masculine, singular, and so we don't get it confused with accusative. I usually just like to write art. Not science, but art. Now, you don't need to write a root. That's the root, and that's the only way it's going to appear. So each article, you don't need to write a root. You just need to write a, nominative, masculine, singular, art, etc. And that tells you what you need to know. Now, just for kicks, let's do another one. Let's take toys here. There should be a circumflex here and here. We got the circumflex. Okay. Toys is a dative, vocative, or instrumental, but we can do a shorthand dative for now. Dative, masculine, plural, art. Okay, so you are going to need to decline the articles as well as the nouns on your homework. And we'll walk you through this whole process in a later video. For now, understand that. But let me tell you something really nifty that you'll know, and this is why it's really important for you to memorize these articles. There's some things that's really important for you to memorize. Some things it'd be good for you to memorize, but if you're like me and sometimes you have to pick and choose, at least initially, before you've spent enough time with it, coaxing it and talking sweet to it and loving on it, if memorization becomes a little bit hard for you, then the article is high on the list. Because here's the deal, Sparky. Let me show you something nifty. Let's say, for instance, that we had a two Adel Foo, all right? And we were going to decline each of these. So when you're doing this in your homework, you're going to write 2 here, and you're going to write Adel Foo beneath it. All right, we put these little dashes because we are ready to decline. We're pretending we're on a homework assignment even though we're not just yet. So, we're going to decline our article, and it is, oh my goodness gracious, is it really? Why, yes it is. It is a genitive masculine. How about that? Singular art for article. Okay, now why do I say it's really helpful to understand the article at this point? Because when an article comes before a noun like this, we say that this article governs that noun. An easy way to remember that is that the article comes before the noun, the article is governing the noun. The noun may not like it, the noun may resent the taxation without representation, whatever, but the article is governing the noun. Now, because the article governs the noun, it's forced to agree with the article. It's not allowed to have its own opinion on 3 things that it has to agree with the article on. It has to agree with the article in gender, or pardon me, case, gender, and numbers. Let's say that in order. It has to agree with the article in case, gender, and number, which means that if the article is genitive, masculine, singular, the noun also has to be genitive, masculine, singular. They're going to agree. Now then, of course, we'll have noun. Well, why I'm writing an M is a good question. Noun, and of course that's of adelphos, which means brother. We did that last time. But for now, what I'm wanting you to understand is, let's just say, for instance, because nouns aren't always consistent. Nouns can play with you. Sometimes we have things like feminine nouns of the second declension and stuff like that. And it gets really annoying, and you want to rip out your little hairs and stuff. But if you know your articles and you see that the article is governing a noun, even if it doesn't follow the usual patterns and it looks a little funky, it's going to agree, and it's really easy to parse the noun if you, decline the noun if you've already declined the article. Genitive, masculine, singular article will always be governing, or I should say a noun that's following a genitive, masculine, singular article will always be a genitive, masculine, singular noun. The same is true for nominatives, or datives, and all that jazz. Woo! Okay, so that is why it is important for you to understand the articles, because when the article is governing a noun, and they also govern adjectives, and they also govern other weird and wonderful things that I'll tell you about probably in the second semester. Infinitives, participles, stuff like that. And so memorize these articles and they will serve you well. Well, they will serve you well. They will serve you well. Okay. That is your introduction to the article. Hope you had a good time.